Hello there everybody, my name is Toby and welcome to episode 1 of Building Tips and Tricks. This is a series where I teach you some of the essentials for building. And today we're focusing on texturing, and as you can see behind us we have a few walls. We have 2 plain stone ones and one that you may find on a typical building. But at the moment these look extremely plain and boring. I am going to show you how you can make these look so much better. Now, to begin with, we're going to start off with these 2 stone walls. We're going to leave this for now because I want to show you 2 different scenarios where you need to decorate a wall. The first one is a run-down wall, and the second one is a more looked after, more structured wall. But we're going to begin with this one. So let's imagine this is a makeshift wall. At the moment it doesn't look makeshift, it just looks like a slab of concrete. So what we need to do first is layer out some blocks that we want to include. Now, with stone, andesite, gravel and cobblestone tends to work really well. And that's because they're all grey blocks. As you can see, if they're next to each other, the stone blends really well with the andesite. If I do this, as you can see, the transition between both of these blocks is almost seamless. And the same goes with this one, except there's slightly darker areas. But still, it does blend in quite well. The gravel, with the new textures, is kind of purpley, so it doesn't blend as well, but there are places where it does blend. So as you can see, they all work well together. As well as this, however, there's also things like dead coral, and I'm not going to use all of them. Things like the dead bubble coral, the textures are very different, and they do not mix very well. But things such as dead fire coral and dead horned coral, they're slightly less busy textures and they work well with gravel and cobblestone. So I'm going to be using them as well. So we've already got a palette, which is nice. So we're going to start building up. Now, texturing, it's very simple. All you need to do is place blocks randomly, and unfortunately that's all you can do. You can't really use any tools for it. You can use world edit, but that's only good if you want it to be perfectly random. So yeah, as you can see, we don't want to place them too sporadically. Of course, remember this, you do want it to be random, and in random patterns they will often be found next to each other, so you do want to include that in places. And we're just going to keep adding it here and there, just to liven it up. Now already we've actually added quite a bit of colour. The dead coral and the gravel are very purpley colours, so they don't contrast very well with the stone. This is why we want to use more andesite and cobblestone than these textures. So we want to get rid of most of this. We only want these every once in a while. We mainly want to have cobblestone and andesite. And as you can see, it already looks a lot more worn and like it's very old and used. Now, of course, this is a good makeshift wall, but if you want to make it look like it's an old wall that was still once used, you'll want to mix in some stone bricks and some polished andesite. This makes it look like it was once just a normal brick wall, but it's just began to slowly collapse in on itself. It's breaking quite easily now. You just want to give the impression that it was once a wall, but it's aged a bit. Now, of course, if you're building some sort of Celtic settlement or something, or something more agricultural, you may just want to include the normal original blocks. You may not want to incorporate the bricks, but if you're in some sort of medieval area or city, you may want to include the bricks to showcase that it was once more structured a bit better. You can also include things like cracked stone bricks every once in a while, just to show they're a bit more weathered. And you can also include stone brick stairs to show there are indents here and there. The same can be said with cobblestone stairs as well, and in 1.14 andesite stairs are also an option, as well as stone stairs. If you've also got room for another layer behind, you can of course add another layer back behind it and add slabs and things underneath. Also, if you have a scenario like this where the stairs are upside down but you can see some of the block below, walls are not just placed on the ground, they're buried into the ground slightly, so you want to put a block underneath there to showcase that it's still cemented into the ground. You may want to use a darker block such as grey concrete powder, because it's just a little darker than all the other blocks, and it shows that the water and the dirt has mixed with it a little more. Now, there's also going to be a little bit of colour, because it's right next to lots of grass, and this grass is going to mix in and with the wall, and there's also going to be a lot of rain causing for moss to grow, and this will also be the case in areas such as this, so I'll often replace these areas with mossy cobblestone and mossy stone bricks. You have to be a bit realistic though. You don't really want too much of this, you just want it to be here and there, and you only want it to be near the ground. You don't want it to be too high. As you can see, there's just a little bit of green at the bottom, but as you go higher, the moss hasn't grown all the way up there, because it's a little more realistic if it's close to the ground. Of course, there will be times where you'll see bits of moss growing in gaps like this, or higher up on the wall, but I prefer it to just keep it in one area. You don't want to make it look too busy. Now, as you can see, there are little nooks and crannies here and there that obviously show parts of the wall have fallen out, but then they've just vanished into nothing. You do want to include things like slabs and stairs right at the bottom of the wall to show just that it's breaking up a tiny bit. You can also utilise pressure plates and buttons if it's not too much of it falling apart. If you really want, you can add proper little breakages in the wall where it's completely fallen apart. But that's only optional. It depends how worn out you want your wall to be. As you can see, it already looks like it's crumbling away at the bottom a lot better. You can also show that these collapsations have damaged the earth a bit. You can often make gaps in the ground like so, and use things like jungle or spruce slabs to show that the earth is damaged slightly and it's collapsed into the ground itself, and it's starting to erode away at not just the wall but the earth as well. You can also add things such as here, where you can have parts of the wall leaning outwards a tiny bit to show that it's starting to become dislodged slightly, and almost as if it's literally coming out, like the bricks have broken apart and are being forced out of the wall itself. And as you can see, we have now finished this wall and it looks a lot better from the plain wall we had at the start, and I'm very happy with it. And if you do want to use these designs in your world to showcase that parts of your walls are a lot older than the rest of your world, you'll definitely want to use this design here. Of course, in the next update we'll have things like granite slabs which can be used down here, and other stone slabs and walls which can look a lot better, but since I'm building this in 1.13 those aren't available to me just yet. If we want to make it look like the wall is actually being used, we want to make it look like it's supported. Firstly, we're going to have to bring it out slightly, like so. This already makes it look as if there's something holding it together, not like it's just magically floating. We can then add things like decorations and archways, which just allow us to shape it up a little easier. As you can see, we've now got a very nice curve here. Of course, walls will rarely be extremely smooth, especially if you're building in a medieval scene. You want to give the impression that it is structured, it is made of bricks, but you don't want to make it all out of bricks. So, the way to get around this is by just putting a few bricks against a smooth stone wall. This gives the impression that yes, there are bricks making it up, but it doesn't make it too textured and overcrowded. As you can see, it already looks a lot nicer, and we've just added a small amount of bricks and stone in the outer areas. As you can see, it still looks like it's made of bricks, but it doesn't directly tell you that the whole thing is made of bricks. Now, we also want to add more colour into here, because otherwise builds will be boring. You still want to have a little bit of greenery near the bottom, but very, very little. As well as this, if you want, you can add supports here and there. I personally think it doesn't look too great, so I'm just going to leave it as it is. If you want to make the area look like it's being used, add things like chests and barrels underneath to make it look like it's being used for things. This can often add just a nice little touch, but it often works really well, and it makes it look like the area is being used for all sorts of different things. You can also add things like battlements at the top, just to make it seem like it's also being used for other purposes, such as walkways and military purposes. And there we have it. And don't forget, you can also add pathways near the bottom if you haven't already, just to make it look like the area is being walked along. And you can use a similar method of texturing if you want to, or you can just leave it as it is. And there we have it. We have two very different walls, and already this would make an area in a city or someplace like that a lot more lively. And now we're going to move on to the wall of a house. Now, this is a bit different to the stone walls, as you want to break it up a bit. Firstly, you want different colours. You want grayscale blocks. You want all sorts, whatever you want. So to begin with, you can break it up by making a foundation. Of course, this won't work on all builds, but for this one, I think it will work perfectly. Now, I want to make it look like this house is actually lived in, but you can make it similar to this house and make it as if it's not being lived in, as if it's ruined and old. You can just add little trims such as this, and it already makes the build a lot livelier, and it also adds some shape to it. You can also add more shape by creating pillars such as these. These allow you to shape the build very neatly, and if they collide with the roof block, it's also very useful to create overhangs. They can also create shape and never look out of place either. Now, to break it up, you just want to add pillars across the area, but making loads of little squares is quite annoying. So you can use spruce combined with these logs to create a little more shape with it, and these on their own can be a little nicer than just a plain old bars just straight across the area, and you often don't even need to decorate these areas. And if you really want to decorate it even more, you can add a layer of glass. Of course, I prefer to use full blocks, set back a bit, so that you can add excess decoration if you really want to. As you can see, this allows us to make a very nice arch, and using things like grass as well, and spruce trapdoors, we can make nice little gardens, or we can create nice little windowsills, and we can put things such as flowers in there, such as rose bushes and lilacs if we so want to. Finally, you can add details such as overhangs like these, and they just allow to make the build a nicer shape and give it some more detail. And there we have it. We have changed 3 walls completely, and now it looks a lot better, apart from on the back. These can be implemented into a lot of worlds, and it just makes it look a lot nicer. In addition to this, you can add whatever you want. Personally, I may bring these battlements out slightly and have a little pattern like this, but that's just me. Others of you may not want to do that whatsoever. Well, what I'm trying to say is, you can do whatever you want, you can implement any design that you wish, and it will often work. Of course, you may need to play around a bit, but overall I'm pretty happy with these designs. Thank you so much for watching this video. I do hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, please leave any suggestions down below, and if you want me to do any future tutorials, or if you want me to help you with things such as roofs, certain types of walls, walkways, paths, whatever you want, please ask me down below, and I'll be sure to put it on my to-do list. Anyway, thank you for watching, I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you all next time.